What's up, guys? Nemo Propaganda here. Listen, excitement level 10 out of 10 right now. I've been dropping hints for a couple of weeks that I've had a subwoofer here that's not been released to the public yet. I told you guys it's going to come in at a crazy price point. I told you it was going to redefine the affordable subwoofer category, and I meant every word of it. Here we go. It's the RSL Speedwoofer 10E coming in $149 cheaper than the 10S Mark II, $299. Let's talk about it. Let me get those main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. I'll tell you about some specs and standout features, what it sounds like, how it compares to some other subwoofers, and of course, what's different about the 10E model versus the 10S Mark II. We'll talk about value and stuff like that, and then we'll wrap up the video. So, standout features. Oversized aluminum dust cap up front. The driver material itself is paper that's reinforced with Kevlar. The plate amplifier is 300 watts RMS, which is absolutely class leading at this price point. Guys, most subwoofers around $300 or less, listen, I'm going to just keep it real with you. Some companies lie. Some companies lie, well, perhaps lie is not the right way to say it. They're a bit deceptive with the way they tell you the wattage. They will rate peak power instead of RMS. And I'm not going to name names like Bowers and Wilkins, but some companies, what they'll do is they'll rate peak power. And this is the thing to know. With Class D amplifiers, peak power is oftentimes double, triple, or even quadruple the RMS power. The Speedwoofer 10E, 300 watts RMS, 800 watts peak. If RSL was playing the marketing game, like some other brands do, in and around this price, they'd tell you this thing has 800 watts. They don't because they're an honest company. I respect that. I appreciate that. Don't let some of these other more affordable brands' deceptive marketing practices trick you guys. 300 watts, honest RMS power. Some other standout features, the cabinet. There's no subwoofer in and around this price that has a cabinet like this. 1-inch thick front baffle, 3/4-inch MDF on all the other panels. That's insane. If this was a car audio cabinet, it'd be good for around 1,200, 1,300 watts RMS out of a 12-inch driver. No problem. That is a very beefy cabinet. Let me tell you how it's different than the 10S Mark II. How was RSL able to bring the retail price down $149? That's a lot of savings on a product that was already so affordable. And did it impact the sound, right? Is it any good now that it's so affordable? Spoiler. I mean, yeah, it's really good. So what RSL noticed is with the 10E having 300 watts RMS instead of the 400 watts RMS that the 10S had, that it just wasn't moving quite as much air at the limit. It didn't need that flared port around back, so they were able to take that out of the equation, lower the price, pass that down to you. They also noticed while a lot of people appreciated that the 10S Mark II had some features like the high-level input or the wireless receiver built in, they also noticed a lot of people weren't using that. So they took those two options out and again, lowered the manufacturing cost and passed that directly on to the consumer. What else? So this is actually an interesting one. Most subwoofers that are $1,000 or less have a stamped steel basket, and the 10E is no different. There's nothing wrong with that. Stamped baskets are just fine. Some examples of subwoofers that have stamped basket, REL 1003 Mark II, REL 1205 Mark II, SVS SB 1000 Pro, SB 2000 Pro. Most subwoofers under $1,000, stamped steel basket, pretty normal. And that's what the 10E has. The 10S Mark II has a cast basket, which is pretty rare for $449. I believe it's one of the only sub $500 subwoofers that exists that uses a cast basket. And that's another way they were able to save money and again, pass that directly on to the customer. So those are the differences, guys. There's not a lot of them. Did it impact sound quality? No, it didn't. Having 100 watts less than the 10S Mark II, obviously the 10E is not going to play quite as loud at the most extreme levels of output and extension, but it is still tremendously capable, considerably more capable than any other subwoofer in and around this price category, guys. Think something like the Yamaha C912 or JBL 550P. Those cabinets may as well be made out of cardboard compared to something like the Speedwoofer 10E. And their drivers are like a joke by direct comparison to what RSL gives you, and their wattage, There's a lot of confusion around that Yamo, but originally the specs were, I believe it was 75 watts RMS. Just to give you an idea, here you get 300. The JBL 550P, I can't remember the wattage, honestly. Listen, guys, if you know of another subwoofer around 300 bucks that you think even comes close to this, let me know. Leave a comment. I'm curious. I would love to check it out, but I don't think such a thing exists. So we're getting the same incredibly good transients that the Speedwoofer 10S is known for. The Speedwoofer 10S Mark II was incredible because while it was a vented sub, it sounded like a sealed subs in terms of its transient response and note-to-note distinction. The sub I would compare it to most would be something like a SVS SB1000 Pro or SB2000 Pro. That's about what the 10S Mark II sounds like, which is a pretty good sub. It's a very popular sub. It's not cheap. The SB1000 Pro is about 600 bucks. The 2000 Pro is 800 or 900. I can't remember exactly. So that's about the level of performance you're getting. The 10E is actually going to have more output than something like an SVS SB1000 Pro. So if you were thinking about getting one of those, you could just get two of these instead. Granted, the two subwoofers are fairly different. You know that SB1000 Pro is a sealed 12. It's got a cell phone app with a whole lot of features, whereas the 10E is more of a stripped down model in terms of features, but instead is going to be all about output, extension, and really good transients. So if we're up to me, I'd rather have a pair of 10Es than a single SB1000 Pro, but you decide however you like. Overall, the sound quality is good. Look, RSL is really good at making a vented subwoofer that does all the things vented subwoofers are known to do, like play loud, get low, and be very, very forceful in the lower registers. And they're really good at making a vented subwoofer that doesn't do the bad things vented subwoofers generally do. Vented subs, generally speaking, don't have the tightest presentation. They don't have the clearest leading edges with their attack, and they don't have the best transients. That's not the case for RSL. I'm not quite sure how they do it. I don't know if it's their unique vent design. This is not like a typical vented sub design. There's some unique stuff going on inside that I'm not going to get into because truthfully, I don't really understand it all too well. But RSL's vented subwoofers have a very clear and well-defined leading edge, much like a sealed subwoofer. They have the transients that are more in line with a sealed subwoofer. And their note-to-note distinction, again, you know what I mean? They're not slow or soft sounding. So absolute hats off to them. Now let's talk about, should you get a 10E or a 10S? I'd say that just comes down to budget. You know what I mean? If you've always wanted a Speedwoofer 10S Mark II, but $449 was just a little bit more than you could afford, get a 10E. I mean, if you don't need that high level input, you don't need the built-in wireless receiver, like those are the only difference in features, really. I mean, the other two differences are going to be, the wattage and then the port not being flared. Like you're still getting an absolutely incredible subwoofer at an extremely reasonable price. I mean, again, a pair of these things would be $598. I just can't think of anything that'll come close to doing what a pair of 10Es would do. For under $600. I'm not sure anything is better, even at a pair. So I've told you what it sounds like. I've told you how it's different than the 10S Mark II, essentially what RSL had to do to bring the price down. And I hope you guys can see they really did pass every penny they saved on to the customer, which is not something you see very often. So special acknowledgement for that, right? These guys really do seem to care about bringing serious value to the customer. It seems like they want their product to shatter the expectation of what that price category can offer. They've done an extremely good job at accomplishing that so far. Every single product I've reviewed from RSL has gone on to be a product of the year in that year I reviewed it. Straight up. That's how good their stuff is. So, comparisons. Not a lot to get into here because I already told you it's way better than anything under $300. It's better than the Yamo C912, like substantially. Like even if you had 4 Yamo C912s, I'd still take a single Speedwoofer 10E. JBL 550p, good value. Sometimes you can find it for under $200. I'd still rather get the RSL Speedwoofer 10E. Reason being that JBL 550p falls absolutely flat at like 31, 32 hertz. It doesn't have any extension in it beyond that. It's got a hard subsonic limiter in it because the driver is, it's a cheapie. It just can't handle those lower frequency bursts, whether it be music or theater or whatever. The 10E is a proper subwoofer, and I've never seen a proper subwoofer at $300 or less. I just haven't. So let's compare it to some more expensive stuff. 10E, I'm sorry, the 10S Mark II is the first subwoofer that is going to be slightly better than the 10E, and it's only slightly better because it could play a little louder and get a little lower. Aside from that, they have identical sound quality. I'll even say the 10E in some ways, look, it's been a while since I've heard the Speedwoofer 10S Mark II, but it did seem like the 10E played ever so slightly tighter. I could be wrong. This could just be all in my head. Both play very tight though, which is a good thing. Good transients, good leading edges, you know. So look, let's compare it to the SVS SB1000 Pro. That's kind of like the standard, like entry-level subwoofer, you know what I mean? That thing used to be $500, and I think it made more sense around that price. It's $600 now. Both have vinyl wrapped cabinets. No big deal there, especially at this price point. SVS is going to be more about its features. It's going to give you a ton of features in that SB1000 Pro. The cell phone app, fine-grained controls over all kinds of little settings, user-definable profiles, and if you're into that, by all means, you're going to love that subwoofer. It's a very good subwoofer. There's nothing wrong with it. The 10E, on the other hand, is all about pure performance at half the price. That's a strong argument because, again, you could buy a pair for what a single SB1000 Pro costs. Trying to think if there's anything else I can really compare it to. Just so we're clear, the output, you know, of like something like a 10E or like a 10S, it's going to be more in line with something like a REL 1205 Mark II or SB 2000 Pro, because these are vented 10s, and vented subs generally have twice the output of their sealed counterpart, or about the same output as the next size up in a sealed cabinet, generally, very generally speaking, of course. So look, man, we've got a winner here. I can't think of anything else I could say to try to quantify how good this is. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down here. If you've got $300 to spend on a subwoofer or $600 on a pair, you literally cannot do better. Your research stops here. You don't need to watch another YouTube video. You don't have to read another article. You don't have to go on the forums. You're finished. Your research is finished. It's time to make a purchase. This is the thing to buy. It's that simple, and it's really awesome when stuff's that simple. And you know, because it just makes the process easy. You know what I mean? I'll give you another example here on what I mean by that. A while ago, it was time for my mom to get a new car. I've been paying for my mom's cars for a while now, just as a apology, if you will, for being a difficult teenager many years ago. And the car I get for her is the Toyota Camry, and here's the reason. I don't need to do any research. I don't. When I get my mom a car, I'm looking to spend right around $30K. I'm looking for something that is going to be high quality. It's going to drive well. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to have a good amount of options to it. It's going to have nice bright headlights and a very supportive seat because she's 71 years old now. And I know the Camry is simply the class leader. There's nothing better than a Toyota Camry in and around that price. There just isn't. You know what I mean? You get some of you guys say, like, oh, what about Kia and Hyundai? They don't compare. I'm sorry, like they don't. I'm not hating on Kia and Hyundai. They've really like stepped up their styling recently, but like, I'm sorry, like they don't come close. They really don't. Sorry guys. Honda Accord, close competitor. I will admit that, but it doesn't have the reliability of the Camry. So, Speedwoofer 10E. Redefine your expectations. A level of performance, extension, and output that has never been available at $300 until now. Rejoice. If you're tight on budget, as Thomas in Stereo says, if you've been having to eat a lot of ramen noodles to save up for your next purchase, I don't think you're going to have to eat too many packs of noodles to be able to afford the subwoofer. If you got any questions, ask in the comments section below. This YouTube channel does have a free Discord. The link is in the description of all my videos. Yeah, guys, that's everything I want to tell you. Until next time, later.